Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Code Serial.
So, Al, what's been going on since the last time I
A
saw
lot
you?
of things been going on. I finally submitted my application for the training
Hey,
pathways.
well done!
Finally,
What did you apply for?
IMT and all the MSRA bloke.
Okay.
Yeah, all of them. GP, psychiatry,
Mhm.
ACCS, the whole
Gosh,
bunch.
you've been
I've been
busy.
very busy and such a stressful process.
Oh, I know.
We're going to give you guys a brief about it later on,
Mhm.
but for today, I'd like to navigate back to our last episode.
Oh, yes.
We were speaking about people who finished FY1, FY2, and they were trying to get a job in the UK. What are their options? We
Mhm.
spoke about educational fellow, a junior clinical fellow, and
Going to Australia.
going to Australia.
So, now we're going to talk about what happens if you've been through that whole process and you've just decided that medicine isn't for you and you want to
Medicine.
sack it all off what together. What now?
What now?
What
What
are
are
the
you going to do?
options for someone who has a medical degree?
I'm not sure what they are, but I assume there's definitely a lot of things you can do with a medical degree other than being a doctor.
I think a lot of people aren't sure, which is why I've made it my mission to go and find out.
You've told me that. Please say
Yeah.
more.
So, I have got in touch with a friend
Okay.
who I worked with a few years ago who managed to successfully bounce out of medicine and now works for a pharmaceutical company.
Nice.
So I managed to have a little chat with him. You want to have a look?
Yes, of course.
Let's
Let's
check it
do
out
it.
now.
Let's check it out.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us, Sohel. So, for those of you watching, this is one of my friends who has managed to find a way out of medicine and do something else. So, first of all, can I ask you why you left medicine in the first place?
Yeah. So it was, to be honest, it was probably a multiple of reasons. Where do I start? I mean, my biggest issue was just the environment we were working in. Obviously, Serena and I met, just for some background, um, at the Royal National Orthopaedic Hospital in Stanmore during the COVID pandemic. Serena was a newly qualified medic, who
I'm
just came.
terrified every
I'm
day.
terrified. It was a terrifying place to start working in the NHS. So, I mean, you've done well so far. That might be the first and last thing I might say that's nice to you. But yeah, so it was it's a multitude of things. I think the biggest issue for me was probably just the general lack of support for junior doctors or
Mm.
trainee doctors in the NHS from seniors, from management, and from the establishment itself. Particularly when you're in a training program, particularly in busy hospitals, um, most of your job is just providing a service rather than being trained. And to do that for the majority of your career before you become a consultant is a really hard ask. That was, I think, my biggest reason. The other big reason was of course, work-life balance. Shift work, especially at the stage of my life that I was when I moved out of the NHS. I just got married, thinking about starting a family, and the pattern of work, the stress of work in the NHS is really not conducive to a good family life. I think anyway.
No, it's not. And I'm sure a lot of people watching can relate. Can you tell us what the absolute breaking point was that made you decide, right, that's it, I'm
I
out?
think it came to a point. So at the time I was doing a research fellow job at Stanmore, which I really enjoyed, and I really enjoyed the research aspects of it. I was covering night shifts across the hospital, which again wasn't particularly taxing. There was a reasonably good staff at the hospital, generally speaking, and mostly they were reasonably straightforward nights. The biggest issue was the fact that research was very much unsupported in the NHS. Most of what you do is looking back at old cases and writing retrospective reports and calling it research, and it really isn't. And there's a wealth of potential for really good quality research leading to breakthroughs within the healthcare settings in the UK, and it's just not taken seriously. And you find yourself just clawing at piles and piles of notes, trying to sort of gather some valid data that you can try and put into like a third-rate publication in an obscure journal somewhere just to tick a box. And that really did do it for me. On top of that, the clinical work and looking at, particularly at sort of consultant levels, the bottleneck to getting a job in a place that you actually want to work.
I
Yeah, and then
see.
I thought, do I want to climb this sort of greasy pole for the next 8 to 10 years to then
Hmm.
struggle to find a stable consultant post somewhere geographically that I want to be and in hospital and in the unit that I want to be where I get along with my peers. And for me, that was pretty much this is going to be an impossible task.
I see. So, and just to clarify for everyone, we were in London at the time as well, weren't we?
Yeah.
Northwest London, which makes all of that so much harder. So, I think those are all fair enough reasons and things everyone can relate to. So, not being able to find a consultant job in the place you want, a lack of support as a junior doctor, or what's it called now, resident doctors, but we weren't at the time, and just a lack of satisfaction in your research job, which, on paper, that's a great job. You've managed to get largely out of clinical medicine, though we were working in clinical medicine at the time as well.
Yeah.
So can you tell us what you're doing now?
So now I work for a major pharmaceutical company, working in clinical research and development. So what that involves is designing protocols for potential medications that have gone past sort of in vivo testing and are ready to be tested either as first in human or further phase 2 or phase 3 studies with a view to submission for licensure. So
Wow.
very data driven, not as much patient interaction
Hmm.
um, as you would have in healthcare, but a lot of interaction with colleagues in clinical development, in translational
Hmm.
medicine, people in regulatory affairs, medical
Hmm.
affairs, pharmacovigilance. So you work with a huge range of people, certainly in my company, spanning different countries, which includes spanning different time zones as well, which is a new challenge. Um, and the thing I like the most about it is I get to focus just on the clinical bits. So I
Yeah.
still get to use my medical training, my clinical knowledge, in very different ways.
Hmm.
Um,
Wow. Do you miss the patient contact?
I do sometimes, but working in this environment is, to use corporate speak, is what we call a matrix environment. So you work with people from different specialties, different backgrounds, a lot
Hmm.
of non-clinicians as well.
Hmm.
So there's a real shared knowledge across the group. You have statisticians who are by far the smartest people in the room, um,
Hmm.
who will keep you on track and make sure you're doing what you need to get the data you need. Um, so
I
it's
see.
so where in healthcare you'd have the patient interaction with your colleagues. You're basically substituting that for interaction with a whole suite of different people.
Hmm.
Um, so you don't lose that human element.
Hmm.
And you still have very much a sense of teamwork, which is really nice to do.
Are you glad you left medicine? Do you regret anything about it?
I'm glad I left healthcare. Um, I don't regret leaving. I really enjoy what I do. It's really fulfilling, and certainly, a lot of people often worry about, oh, well, I'll miss that thing of helping people and being there for patients. But actually, in pharmaceutical medicine, um, you're helping thousands, if not millions, of people. If you
Mm.
can, if you have your hand in something that turns out to be a successful medication, a successful vaccine or treatment, um, you have the potential to help millions. I mean, the COVID vaccine, for example, is
Mm.
testament to that. Um, you know, People working on the COVID vaccine have probably, I would say, saved the world from that
Wow.
pandemic. Um, there are
Interesting.
very few jobs where you can say that. Um,
Yeah, no, there are.
so
On
the
that,
impact is
that's something
huge.
we should probably address. I think a lot of people would sort of maybe hear the concept of working in quote unquote big pharma and for all the benefits, sort of the main thing that comes to mind, I suppose, pushed by this narrative and mainstream media and on social media, is that inherently what's happening in big pharma is that drugs are being pushed and big evil. What do you have to respond to that narrative?
So I'll be honest, I was one of those people when I was still working in healthcare, who was sort of distrustful of big pharma.
Hmm.
There's always a conspiracy theories of they're keeping drugs behind locked doors and this, that, and the other.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
the honest truth is that really isn't the case. I've seen it firsthand now, so I've very much gone the other way. Ultimately, it is a business,
Hmm.
and it is there to make money, but at the same time, big pharmaceutical company and all the big pharmaceutical companies play a huge part in drug development, in providing funding for
Hmm.
critical research, in
Hmm.
providing medications, vaccines, treatments to low economic status countries as well.
Hmm.
And there are huge numbers of programs and collaborations and forums where a lot of public healthcare needs are met by big pharma,
Hmm.
often at cost, without profit or low profit
Hmm.
situations, particularly when it comes in the context of low economic countries.
Hmm.
Um, I can say firsthand in terms of clinical development, if something looks like it might succeed, we do not hold back. Um,
Okay.
the amount of money, time, people, energy that goes into trying to get something working and into the clinic so that we can test it in humans, in healthy patients, and then into patients who need this medication. It is very personal for a lot of us.
Hmm.
Um, and, a lot of people who work in certain therapeutic areas do so because they have a personal connection to either by themselves or through friends or family.
Hmm.
So I have colleagues who work, for example, in oncology who have been through the cancer journeys themselves or with family members. And so it is a very personal thing. And for those of us who are clinicians first, we still hold that very personally and we still think about, well, this thing that I'm working on could save thousands of patients' lives or, just even improve quality of life for those who have poor prognoses.
Can you tell us about, you know, sick leave and leave in general and the perks that come from leaving
Yeah.
medicine?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a corporate job. So with that come corporate perks.
Hmm. Hmm.
Obviously the big elephant in the room is obviously pay and salary. Pay and salary is significantly better
Mm.
um, outside the NHS, and that goes hand in hand with it being a private entity that's function is to sadly make money. But ultimately, to pull people away from a vocational job like being a doctor, where you've
Hmm.
trained for so long, worked so hard, and gone through so much hardship and
Hmm.
stress, strain, emotions,
Hmm.
you need something to pull people away from that. You get into medicine because you're passionate about it. You
Hmm.
certainly, at least in the UK, don't get into it for the money. So
Yeah,
there has to be something
sure.
that pulls you out. And obviously the financial
Mm.
incentive is one of those things.
I see.
In terms of other perks, and these are pretty standard across a lot of corporate entities or anything that's in the sort of private market. So private healthcare, for example, life insurance, the pensions.
Life
Um,
insurance. Wow, that must be nice.
that is, especially when you have a mortgage and children, it certainly helps.
I can imagine.
And there's a big drive towards wellness,
I
in
see.
particular, and in particular mental health. And our company for sure puts a lot of emphasis towards wellness. We have really good policies regarding sick leave in it, and including mental health as well. You can take
Okay.
sick leave for if you need mental health days, for example. We have annual wellness days, which are essentially a bonus day off to use for basically anything that makes you happy.
Oh, that's
Um,
nice. That's
and
so
and
nice.
and in parts of the organization, we have budgets for wellness activities, either for individuals or as groups,
Hmm.
um, so that one, it brings teams together. Two, it gives you a chance to disconnect, reset, and come back stronger.
Hmm.
So in that sense, it's a really supportive environment, both for
Hmm.
physical and mental health.
Hmm.
Our sick leaves are pretty generous as well. As I said, we have private healthcare, so it's an environment that thrives on people being their best. You can only deliver
Hmm.
your best if you're feeling your best. Um,
Interesting. You'd have thought that being a doctor runs on the same principle, doesn't it? But that's not really reflected, maybe, in the way that we get treated in our job.
yeah, yeah, and this again was another consideration I made when I left the NHS was
Mm.
if we're going to have kids and start a family, I want to be able to be at home with my kids, particularly when
Mm.
they're newborns. And one of the biggest perks I got was being able to take 12 weeks off for paternity leave fully paid.
Oh,
Um,
that's so nice.
which is interesting, and it's actually quite interesting because I've got a really close friend who's a doctor in the NHS in London who also had a baby just a few weeks before me, and he
Oh,
got 2 weeks of paternity leave.
Oh my goodness. I think a
And
lot of
this is
people.
a doctor in the NHS where, and in the NHS where how important it is for parents to be at home particularly in those first few months. And for me, that was an absolutely amazing experience. My management and my bosses were really supportive of it. And, at the time when I was applying for paternity leave, I was thinking of not taking the full allowance. And my manager turned around to me and said, look, you're not going to get this time back. So take the full amount. It doesn't matter. Nothing's going to happen. Your job is safe. You will be
Yeah.
fine. And it was. And, I really appreciated that. And it's not many places where you're encouraged to take all of your leave without fear for, losing your standing at work or losing projects or anything like that. It was a really nice experience. And it meant I got to spend all that time at home with my son,
Oh,
which was amazing.
and he's right, you never get that time back, do you? Oh, that's so
Exactly.
lovely. So 52% of F2s finishing F2 this year were not able to find a job as a doctor. So, anecdotally, all these people are doing various different things. Some people have moved back home to be with their parents. I know quite a large cohort have gone to Australia, and some people are just jobless and really wondering whether they should continue in medicine at all. So what do you have to say to people to these junior doctors specifically, who are just wondering whether they should continue in medicine or not?
I've been in that place post F2, didn't have a training job, wasn't really sure what to do. And it's quite a scary time. And to be honest, even when you finish F2, you're still quite young. You spent a lot of time in university, which is almost a sort of padded place where you don't really see much of the real world. And generally, you've only really seen down this one road, which is the NHS, healthcare, become a consultant or a GP or whatever else.
The rat race.
Exactly. And my advice to everyone in that position, even people who are still finishing medical school, even people who are applying to medical school, is you have time. There is no point in rushing to a finish line if you're not sure that's where you want to be.
So switching from the ward environment to a job that's a bit more office-based, a bit more meetings-based, did you find that there were any skills you didn't have or that you were lacking?
So this is something that we were struggling with earlier, which is IT skills.
IT skills.
IT skills beyond being able to log on to a single sign-on system and looking at blood results and X-rays.
And imaging and not to sort of generalize the age of people who finish med school, but the majority of people, go into med school when they're 18, come out, do F1, F2, and, talking about those people which is the cohort we're talking about now, who are finishing F2 and struggling to find a job because there are no jobs. They're Gen Z, actually. They're younger than you and me, and their IT skills are better than mine for sure. You've definitely had a bit more practice than the rest of us in medicine because you do these things regularly. So would you say these jobs are quite suited to them?
I think so. And, I think something that I've always been impressed by the generations of doctors that have come after me is their confidence in trying new things and to an extent blagging.
Blogging, ooh.
Because it's an important thing. When I applied for jobs, when I was coming out of the NHS and I was applying for jobs, my background was largely orthopedic, which if you're coming into pharmaceutical medicine is almost a sort of nail in the coffin because most of pharmaceutical medicine wants people from medical specialties. But I had a lot of transferable skills and I did not lie, but embellish a little in interviews and things like that because you have to ultimately, when you're applying for a job, you're applying for something that you will grow into, not necessarily something that you can easily do already. So as long as you have the foundation for those things, you can always build and grow on the job. And most companies support that, and most interviewers are looking at potential, not ability. And that's an important thing to bear in mind, is don't sell yourself short just because you don't have experience or you've not done a particular specialty or a particular job beforehand, because you have a huge set of transferable skills you can use and leverage. And, there are always ways to get around these things. If you're not so good in Excel or with spreadsheets or with PowerPoint, practice.
Hmm.
One of the
Hmm.
best tools I can recommend people is get on LinkedIn, create yourself a profile, and there are tons
Hmm.
of free online learning courses on LinkedIn
Oh, wow.
geared towards things like this, which you can use
Hmm.
to upskill and get yourself more confident in.
Wow, amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing your experience with us. I think you dropped a lot of wisdom today, and I think you've probably given a lot of people quite a lot to think about in terms of future career. Um, yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, so that was my little interview with
That was
Sohail.
so nice.
Yeah, and it was really informative.
Very informative,
I learned
very
so
informative.
much that I didn't know. I was quite surprised by actually how many transferable skills we already have from working in medicine that we can take
We
with
can
us.
take with us.
I mean, I think personally, if I was to be doing a job like that, office jobs which involves loads of tech and lots of meetings, I'd have to definitely brush up on my IT skills, my team
Yes,
skills.
yes, yes.
But we already make a lot of presentations and write a lot of documents as it is. Yeah, so that's definitely something I'd have to brush up on personally. But what I will say is that through rotational training, you get very used to using different systems.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh
yeah,
my
I
God,
agree.
I meant different computer systems constantly. So I feel like that kind of adaptability is something you could take with you into a different job.
You're right. We definitely know how to multitask in medicine.
We do.
We really do, which
Oh,
I
yeah.
reckon is something crucial in a lot of jobs out there.
You're so right.
Uh, I'm just dazzled by that interview you've had with him. Thank you so much for it.
Oh,
It
you're
was
welcome.
so informative. While I was watching the interview, I've had so many questions in the back of my mind that I
Mm-hmm.
automatically found the answers for.
Yeah.
So thank you for this.
Well, that was one particular job. That was working in a pharmaceutical company.
Okay.
You know, really different to what I thought it would be like, really different to being a sales rep. So I think in the next few episodes, we could look at other jobs
Yes,
you can do outside of
we
medicine.
can do
Let's
that.
bring that coming for our viewers, give them more inspo and ideas for those who are thinking that medicine might not be what you thought
What you
it
thought
was
was.
when you were 16.
So this episode is gonna have more parts to come.
Yes, it will.
Cheers to that.
More parts to
More
come.
parts to come.
Cheers, Al.
Cheers.
See you guys next time.
See ya.
Bye.